I am Alyssa, 32 years old, and until last month, I thought I had earned my place in Manhattan's real estate world. 10 years of sacrifice built my career and bought my dream penthouse. Then came my birthday party. 200 guests watched as my father announced, "Hand over your penthouse to your brother," and slapped me across the face. The room froze. I simply said, "Thank you." What they didn't know was that my gratitude wasn't for the slap, but for finally seeing the truth. Where are you watching from? Hit subscribe and stay with me to see how a single slap changed everything. Growing up in the Williams family meant understanding hierarchy. My father, Thomas Williams, ruled our sprawling Connecticut estate with absolute authority. Our family had old money, the kind that came with expectations and traditions stretching back generations. From my earliest memories, I understood that my younger brother, James, held a special place in my father's vision for the future. "He will carry the Williams name forward," Father would say, as if my existence was merely a footnote in our family's story. Mother, Eleanor, was beautiful, refined, and utterly devoted to my father. She floated through our mansion like a ghost, always present, but never truly there when it mattered. When Father would criticize my academic achievements as unladylike ambition, she would simply adjust her pearl necklace and change the subject. I learned early that her protection had limits. "Alyssa, darling, perhaps you should focus more on social connections," she suggested when I was 16, and expressed interest in business courses. "The right marriage will secure your future better than any career." But something in me refused to accept that path. Perhaps it was witnessing how my mother's identity had been completely absorbed by her role as Thomas Williams' wife. Perhaps it was the fire that ignited in my chest whenever my father dismissed my ideas while praising James for the exact same thoughts. College became my battleground for independence. Father refused to pay when I chose finance over the art history degree he deemed suitable. He called it tough love. I called it my first taste of freedom. "If you insist on this foolishness, you can pay for it yourself," he announced at dinner the night before I left home. I worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA, waitressing mornings, library assistant afternoons, and bartending weekends. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, but the exhaustion felt like a badge of honor. Each dollar I earned represented another brick in the wall I was building between myself and my family's expectations. Meanwhile, James attended an Ivy League school on our father's dime. He joined the right fraternities, made the right connections, and partied his way to a barely passing degree in business. Father called it learning to network. I called it privilege. After graduation, I started at the bottom of Morgan Real Estate, a mid-sized firm in Manhattan. My first apartment was a studio the size of my childhood bathroom, shared with a roommate. For 5 years, I worked 14-hour days. Junior agent became senior agent, became team leader, became division director. When I was 28, I orchestrated my first major commercial deal, converting an abandoned warehouse into luxury apartments. The commission changed everything. Suddenly, I could breathe financially. My name started appearing in industry publications. Competitors began trying to poach me. Through it all, my family remained unimpressed. At holiday gatherings, my successes were footnotes to James's ventures, even as his businesses repeatedly failed. First, it was an import-export company that collapsed within 8 months. Then, a sports bar that hemorrhaged money. A tech startup that never started up. After each failure, Father would infuse cash, blame external factors, and reset James for the next attempt. "Business is about resilience," my father would say, patting James on the shoulder. "Williams' men get back up when they fall." I once made the mistake of asking, "What about Williams' women?" The silence that followed was answer enough. When I turned 30, I made the decision that would eventually lead to that fateful slap. I purchased my dream home, a penthouse overlooking Central Park. 3,000 square feet of success that I had earned entirely on my own. The day I signed the papers, I felt a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd ever known. That night, I stood on my terrace, looking at the city lights, and finally felt worthy. I invited my family for a housewarming dinner, perhaps still seeking some acknowledgement. Father walked through my home with a critical eye. "It's certainly modern," he said, making the word sound like an insult. "Though I wonder about the investment wisdom. The market could turn." James was less subtle. "Must be nice having no family obligations," he said, sloshing his third scotch. "Some of us have real responsibilities." His responsibilities included a failed marriage and mounting gambling debts I would later discover. But that night, I still believed he was simply struggling with business setbacks. The following 2 years saw my career continue to rise, while James's situation deteriorated. I noticed increasingly urgent phone calls between my father and brother at family events. Hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Strange questions about my finances, my property. "Have you considered diversifying? Perhaps selling the penthouse while the market is strong?" Father suggested at Thanksgiving last year. I brushed it off as his usual criticism. I never imagined it was the beginning of a plot to take what I had built. A week before my 32nd birthday, I received an unexpected call from my mother. "Your father insists we attend your birthday celebration," she said, her voice carrying its usual blend of warmth and resignation. "He says it's important we support you publicly." It was unusual. My parents typically acknowledged my birthday with a card and obligatory dinner, not enthusiastic attendance at a party with my friends and colleagues. I should have recognized the warning sign. Instead, I felt a flutter of hope that perhaps, finally, they were ready to acknowledge my success. How wrong I was. Planning my 32nd birthday celebration became an unexpected source of anxiety. After my mother's call, I found myself reconsidering every detail. The guest list expanded from 30 close friends and colleagues to over 200 people. I upgraded from my favorite intimate restaurant to the grand ballroom at the Wellington Hotel. Suddenly, it wasn't just a birthday, but a statement. "Is everything all right, Alyssa?" My assistant Tara asked as I revised the catering order for the third time. "You seem unusually concerned about this party." "My parents are coming," I replied, as if those 4 words explained everything. And somehow, they did. The invitations went out on heavy cream cardstock. I invited the partners from my firm, clients I'd built relationships with over the years, and colleagues who had become friends. In a moment of professional pride, I also included several competitors who had once dismissed me, but now couldn't ignore my success. I spent an obscene amount on a gold Valentino dress that made me feel invincible. Hair, makeup, shoes, everything calculated to project the image of the woman I had fought to become. As I dressed that evening, I practiced my smile in the mirror, determined that no one, especially not my family, would see any hint of the insecurity that still lingered beneath my success. The Wellington's ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's skyline. Champagne flowed as guests arrived in their finery. I stood at the entrance, greeting everyone with the polished confidence I had carefully cultivated over years. When my parents arrived, my father looked unusually pleased. He kissed my cheek with a warmth I hadn't felt in years. "You've done well for yourself, Alyssa," he said, eyes surveying the opulence around us. Perhaps better than I expected. I should have recognized the assessment in his gaze, the calculation. Instead, I basked in what I mistook for approval. My brother arrived late, slightly disheveled despite his expensive suit. His eyes held a strange gleam, a mixture of resentment and anticipation that I couldn't decipher. He hugged me too tightly. "Happy birthday, sis," he said, his breath heavy with alcohol. "Quite a show you're putting on." The evening progressed with dining, dancing, and the kind of networking that happens naturally when successful people gather. I moved through the room, accepting congratulations and well wishes, feeling for once that I truly belonged in this world I had fought so hard to join. Shortly after the dessert was served, my father clinked his glass for attention. The room gradually quieted as he stood, commanding the space as he always did. I felt a flutter of pleasure, expecting a rare moment of public acknowledgement. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my daughter Alyssa," he began, his voice carrying the authority that had shaped my childhood. "It's remarkable to see how far she's come." A warm murmur of agreement rippled through the room. I smiled, feeling a dangerous hope rising. "The Williams family has always believed in supporting each other," he continued, "in understanding that individual success is meaningful only when it strengthens the family as a whole." Something in his tone shifted. My smile began to feel frozen. "Tonight, I want to acknowledge an important family decision," he said, gesturing for me to join him. Confused but compliant from years of conditioning, I walked to his side. He placed a hand on my shoulder, addressing the now silent room. Alyssa has achieved remarkable success in real estate. Her penthouse property demonstrates her excellent eye for value. Pride and wariness battled within me. Where was this going? However, family must come first. James is expanding his business ventures and requires a suitable headquarters and residence. Therefore, Alyssa will be transferring her penthouse to her brother, effective immediately. The room went completely still. I felt as though I had stepped into an alternate reality. Surely I had misheard him. This sacrifice demonstrates the Williams family values, my father continued, squeezing my shoulder painfully. Alyssa understands that supporting her brother is more important than personal indulgence. I turned to face him, finding words through my shock. Father, my home is not up for discussion, especially not here. His face hardened, the mask of pride dropping instantly. This is not a negotiation. The paperwork is already being prepared. I won't sign anything, I said, my voice low but firm. What happened next occurred in slow motion. His hand rose and swung toward my face. The crack of the slap echoed through the silent ballroom. My head jerked sideways from the force, heat blooming across my cheek. 200 witnesses, colleagues, competitors, friends, all watching as my father treated me like a disobedient child rather than a 32-year-old woman who owned the property he was trying to seize. I straightened slowly, touching my fingertips to my burning cheek. Our eyes met, and for the first time I saw him clearly, without the filter of desperate hope for approval. I saw a desperate man, a failing patriarch, willing to publicly humiliate his daughter to solve problems of his own making. "Thank you," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Confusion flickered across his face. "Thank you for making it so abundantly clear who you are," I continued quietly, "and who I need to be." I turned away from his reddening face and addressed the stunned room. "Thank you all for coming. Please enjoy the rest of the evening." With as much dignity as I could muster, I walked, not ran, through the ballroom. Past my mother's tears, past James's stunned expression, past whispers and averted gazes. Into the elevator, through the lobby, into the waiting car that would take me home. To the penthouse that was mine, that would remain mine. As the car pulled away, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. The mark of my father's hand was clearly visible on my cheek, but it was my eyes that captured my attention. They were clear, focused, and utterly changed. The moment my penthouse door closed behind me, the composure I had maintained cracked. My legs gave way, and I sank to the marble floor of my entryway, still in my gold Valentino dress, still wearing the diamond earrings that had been my gift to myself. For 10 minutes, I allowed myself to feel everything. The humiliation of being slapped like a child in front of the entire industry I had fought to join. The betrayal of a family who saw me not as a person but as a resource to be drained. The rage that had been building since childhood, compressed into diamonds of resolve deep in my chest. When the tears stopped, I rose and methodically removed my jewelry, hung up my dress, and showered away my smeared makeup. Standing before the bathroom mirror, I examined the red mark on my face that would soon become a bruise. This is the last time, I promised my reflection. The absolute last time. My phone had been buzzing incessantly since I left the party. I finally checked it, finding dozens of messages from concerned friends and colleagues. "Are you okay?" That was inexcusable. "I'm here if you need anything. Do you want me to come over?" The business implications hit me suddenly. My father had just publicly undermined my reputation for strength and independence. In the cutthroat world of Manhattan real estate, any sign of weakness could be fatal to one's career. I called the one person I knew would understand both the personal and professional dimensions of what had happened. "Rachel, I need your help." Rachel Cohen had been my attorney since my first major deal. She was brilliant, ruthless, and fiercely protective of her clients. "I saw the video," she said when she answered. "Someone posted it. Already 20,000 views." My stomach dropped. "Video? Corporate events always have someone recording. You know that." Her voice softened slightly. "You held yourself with dignity, Alyssa. That counts for something." "They're trying to take my home," I said, the words sounding absurd even as I spoke them. "Who exactly is they?" "My father. He announced that I'm giving my penthouse to my brother." said the paperwork was already being prepared. Rachel's laugh was short and sharp. Without your signature? I'd like to see them try. This isn't like him, I admitted. He's controlling, yes. Dismissive, absolutely. But this public display? Something's wrong. People don't steal from their children unless they're desperate, Rachel observed. Let me do some digging. The next morning, I woke to a deluge of messages. Colleagues offering support. Clients confirming our deals were still solid. A few vultures checking if I was vulnerable. Most surprisingly, 3 competitors offering positions should I want to leave my current firm. Crisis, it seemed, had exposed who saw value in me beyond my family connections. My doorman called up mid-morning. Miss Williams, your mother is here. I almost refused, then reconsidered. Send her up. Eleanor Williams arrived looking immaculate as always, her Chanel suit and perfectly coiffed hair a stark contrast to my yoga pants and ponytail. The only sign of distress was the slight redness around her eyes. "Oh, Alyssa," she whispered, reaching toward the bruise on my face. I stepped back. "Why are you here?" He shouldn't have done that. It was wrong. Her voice had the practiced tone of someone who had been excusing bad behavior for decades. Yet here you are, probably to convince me to comply anyway. She sank onto my sofa, suddenly looking older than her 60 years. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. Your father's company is in trouble. Serious trouble. I had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed still surprised me. Williams Investments had been a pillar of stability for 3 generations. What kind of trouble? Financial. Some investments went bad, very bad. She twisted her wedding ring. And James has problems. What kind of problems? Gambling. It started small, but... She looked up, eyes wet. He owes dangerous people almost $2 million. The pieces clicked into place. My father wasn't just being controlling, he was desperate. The Penthouse wasn't for James's business. It was a sellable asset to cover gambling debts. So, I'm supposed to give up my home to bail out James's bad decisions? Again? They'll hurt him, Alyssa. These aren't people who negotiate. I felt a flash of concern for my brother, quickly overshadowed by anger at the manipulation. And what about me? Does anyone care that you're trying to make me homeless to solve problems I didn't create? It wouldn't be forever, just until things stabilize. I laughed without humor. You actually believe that? Your father always makes things right in the end. For James, never for me. After my mother left, I called Rachel. I need everything you can find on Williams Investments. Current financial status, recent deals, problem areas. And I need information on any gambling debts registered against my brother. That might require some creative research methods, she warned. Do what you need to do. And Rachel, I need a security team. Today. The next 48 hours became a crash course in corporate investigation. Rachel assembled a team that included a forensic accountant, a private investigator, and a security specialist. The picture that emerged was worse than I had imagined. Williams Investments had been hemorrhaging money for years. My father had covered losses by shifting funds between accounts, taking out loans against assets, and deferring payments to investors. Classic signs of a company circling the drain. He's been keeping up appearances, the accountant explained, showing me spreadsheets that made my stomach turn. But it's a house of cards. One strong wind and it all comes down. The private investigator's report on James was equally disturbing. His gambling had progressed from sports betting to high-stakes poker to private games with people connected to organized crime. He had already sold his car, liquidated his savings, and taken out loans against his trust fund. The most concerning part, the investigator said, is this loan from a man named Vincent Carducci. $2 million with weekly interest that's already making the principal grow. These aren't people who accept bankruptcy as an option. I sat back, processing everything. So my father's plan was to take my penthouse, sell it, and use the money to pay off James's debt to a loan shark? While telling investors he was simply moving assets within the family, the accountant confirmed. It would buy him maybe 6 months before the larger company issues became unavoidable. I thought about my father's face as he announced his plan. The entitled certainty that I would comply, the shock when I refused, the instantaneous resort to physical dominance when challenged. Something cold and determined settled in my chest. I want to see the books for Williams Investments for the past 5 years, I told the accountant. Every transaction. Every transfer. Every loan. He hesitated. Miss Williams, that would require access we don't legally have. I looked at Rachel. Get it anyway. By the end of the week, I had what I needed. My father had not only been mismanaging the company, but he had also been systematically embezzling funds, falsifying reports to investors, and committing tax fraud on a scale that would interest federal prosecutors. I had become the person with the power to destroy Thomas Williams. The question was, what would I do with that power? The offices of Teller, Brighton and Associates occupied the 32nd floor of a sleek building in Midtown. Simon Teller had been my father's accountant for 20 years and one of his closest confidants. His receptionist's eyes widened when I walked in without an appointment. Miss Williams. Mr. Teller is in a meeting, but I can let him know you're here. That won't be necessary, I said, walking past her desk toward his office. He'll want to see me immediately. I opened the door without knocking. Simon was indeed in a meeting, with 3 men in expensive suits who looked up in surprise. Alyssa, Simon said, recovering quickly. What an unexpected pleasure. As you can see, I'm with clients at the moment. Gentlemen, I said to the men, I apologize for the interruption, but I need to speak with Mr. Teller on an urgent family matter. Perhaps you could give us the room for 15 minutes? Something in my tone made them gather their papers without argument. Simon's smile became fixed as they departed. That was highly inappropriate, he began once the door closed. I placed a flash drive on his desk, not as inappropriate as the contents of this drive. His eyes flickered to it. And what might that be? 5 years of creative accounting at Williams Investments. Specifically, the movement of approximately $12 million from investor accounts to personal accounts, followed by falsified reports to cover the transfers. The color drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. I think you've been helping my father commit fraud for years. I think you're just as liable as he is. These are serious accusations. Yes, they are. The kind the Securities and Exchange Commission takes very seriously. I sat in one of the recently vacated chairs. The kind that end careers and start prison sentences. He removed his glasses, suddenly looking older. What do you want, Alyssa? Information. Everything you know about my father's current financial situation, James's gambling debts, and the plans regarding my penthouse. For a moment I thought he might refuse. Then his shoulders sagged. Your father is underwater. The company has maybe 2 months before major loan payments come due that can't be covered. James's situation accelerated the timeline. Tell me about the debt. $2 million to a man named Carducci, not someone you want to owe money to. Your father has been getting increasingly desperate calls from James. The original plan was to leverage some company assets, but there's nothing left to leverage. So he decided to leverage me instead. Simon looked uncomfortable. The Penthouse would sell for about $5 million in the current market, enough to cover James's debt and buy some time for the company. And my father thought he could just announce this plan and I would comply? He said you would understand once he explained the family was at risk. I laughed without humor. The family. Always the family. Never the individual members who bear the cost. Your father built that company from what his father left him. It's his life's work. And my penthouse is my life's work. The difference is, I earned mine honestly. I stood to leave, then paused. I'll be in touch about what happens next. Until then, I suggest you consult with a good criminal defense attorney. My next stop was more difficult. I had my driver take me to my mother's favorite lunch spot, where I knew she would be meeting her friends, as she did every Friday. Sure enough, she was seated with 3 other impeccably dressed women, their shopping bags clustered around the table. Alyssa! She looked startled when I approached. What are you doing here? I need to speak with you, Mother. Privately. Her friends exchanged glances, clearly aware of the birthday party incident. We were just finishing, one of them said tactfully, signaling for the check. Once they had departed, my mother's polite mask slipped. That was embarrassing, Alyssa. You know I meet the garden committee here every week. I know. That's why I came. We need to talk where Father can't interrupt. She sighed. If this is about the penthouse, it's about much more than that. It's about decades of fraud at Williams Investments. It's about Father stealing from investors to cover losses. It's about tax evasion that could send him to prison. Her teacup clattered against its saucer. What are you saying? I'm saying I know everything, Mother. Every illegal transfer, every falsified report, every lie. That's impossible. Your father would never. He already has. For years. And you've suspected something was wrong for a long time, haven't you? Her eyes filled with tears. Things have been strained, financially. But Thomas assures me it's just temporary market fluctuations. It's not. The company is nearly bankrupt. And James's gambling has made everything worse. A tear slipped down her cheek. He's sick, Alyssa. Addiction is a disease. A disease that father enabled by repeatedly bailing him out instead of getting him help. She dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. What are you going to do? That depends on all of you. I'm having the family over for dinner tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. Make sure father and James are there. Thomas won't come. He's too angry about your refusal. Then make it clear that the alternative is me going to the authorities with what I know. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't do that to your own father. I leaned forward. He slapped me in front of 200 people and tried to steal my home. What do you think I wouldn't do? As I stood to leave, she caught my hand. He loves you, Alyssa, in his way. I gently removed my hand from hers. His way isn't good enough anymore. That evening, I met with the board member I knew was most dissatisfied with my father's leadership. Howard Jennings had been with Williams Investments for 30 years and had been growing increasingly concerned about the company's direction. The slap was concerning enough, he said as we sat in a private dining room at Le Bernardin, but these financial allegations are much worse. They're not allegations, Howard. They're facts. I have documentation. He studied me over his glasses. May I ask what your intentions are? Williams Investments employs 300 people. A scandal could harm many innocent parties. I'm aware of that. I have no desire to destroy the company or hurt its employees. Then what do you want? Change. Real change in how the company operates, and in how my family operates. And if that change doesn't come, I sipped my wine. Then I'll be forced to protect myself by any means necessary. By the time I returned to my penthouse that night, the pieces of my counter-strategy were falling into place. I had spent years being the dutiful daughter, hoping for scraps of approval. That Alyssa was gone, replaced by a woman who understood power and was prepared to use it. As I stood on my terrace looking out at the city lights, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. We'll be there tomorrow at 7. I spent the day preparing for what would undoubtedly be the most important dinner of my life. Not with elaborate cooking, I ordered catering from my father's favorite steakhouse, but with meticulous preparation of documents, evidence, and strategy. Rachel arrived at 5 to review everything one last time. Are you sure you want to do this without me present? She asked, organizing folders on my dining table. They need to see me standing on my own. Having my attorney there would signal weakness. Or prudence. I'll record everything, I promised. And you'll be on standby if needed. At precisely 7, my intercom buzzed. The doorman announced my family's arrival. I took a deep breath, smoothed my navy blue dress, and opened the door. They entered like actors in a play nobody wanted to perform. My mother first, tense but perfectly composed in appearance. My father, his face a mask of controlled anger. James, pale and fidgeting, his eyes darting around the penthouse, taking inventory of what he had thought would soon be his. Thank you for coming, I said, my voice steady. Dinner is ready whenever you are. My father scoffed. We're not here for pleasantries, Alyssa. Your mother says you have something to discuss. After dinner, I insisted. Some conversations are better with food and wine. It was a power move, making them wait, and my father recognized it immediately. His jaw tightened, but surprisingly he complied. Perhaps he was curious about what I thought I knew. Dinner was a surreal affair. The finest foods served amid glacial tension. My mother made valiant attempts at normal conversation. How lovely the tablecloth was. Whether I had seen the latest exhibit at the Met. If I had plans to attend the charity gala next month. James ate ravenously but said almost nothing, occasionally checking his phone with increasing anxiety. My father maintained rigid formality, complimenting the wine selection with cold precision. When the dessert plates were cleared, I suggested we move to the living room. Once everyone was seated, I remained standing, a deliberate choice to maintain the position of authority. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I know it wasn't an easy decision after what happened at my birthday. My father's expression darkened. If this is about an apology. It's not, I interrupted, something I had never dared do before. This is about facts. Specifically, facts about Williams' investments and its current financial situation. He froze. What are you talking about? The company is failing. You've been covering losses by misappropriating investor funds. You've committed tax fraud, securities fraud, and embezzlement. That's absurd, he blustered. But the flash of fear in his eyes confirmed everything. Is it? I walked to the side table and retrieved the first folder. These are records of $12 million moved from investor accounts to personal ones over the past 5 years. These, I pulled out another folder, are the falsified reports submitted to the SEC. My mother gasped softly. James looked confused, then alarmed as understanding dawned. Where did you get those? My father's voice had lost its authority. I have resources, Father, just like you do. The difference is, mine aren't breaking any laws. I turned to James. And you. $2 million in gambling debts to Vincent Carducci. Do you have any idea how dangerous that man is? James seemed to shrink into the sofa. How did you know about that? Because I'm not an idiot, and because I went looking for the reason behind Father's desperate grab for my property. My father stood abruptly. This is family business. Private family business. It became public when you slapped me in front of 200 people and announced you were taking my home. I was protecting the family, he shouted, his composure finally cracking. Everything I've done has been to protect this family. No, I said calmly. Everything you've done has been to protect yourself and James. I've never been included in what you consider family. My mother began to cry silently. James looked like he might vomit. What do you want? My father finally asked, the question costing him visibly. Several things. First, James enters a proper treatment program for his gambling addiction. Not a luxury resort with therapy, but a real program with accountability. James started to protest, but my father silenced him with a look. Second, you step down as CEO of Williams Investments. The board will appoint an interim leader while a restructuring plan is developed. That's outrageous. The company bears my name. Would you prefer it bear your name in the newspapers when the fraud charges are filed? He paled. You wouldn't. I absolutely would. Because you've taught me very thoroughly that nothing matters more than protecting oneself. My mother found her voice. Alyssa, please. This would destroy everything. I'm not finished. Third, you will use your personal assets, not company funds and certainly not my property, to resolve James's debt situation. Sell the vacation home in Aspen. Liquidate your art collection. Downsize from the Connecticut estate if necessary. My father looked stricken. Those have been in the family for generations. So has the notion that Williams men get back up when they fall. Isn't that what you always told James? Now you get to demonstrate it yourself. The room fell silent as my father processed the completeness of his defeat. For the first time in my life, I saw him look old and vulnerable. And if I refuse? He asked, one last attempt at defiance. I retrieved a final folder from the side table. Then, these documents go to the SEC, the IRS, and the district attorney's office tomorrow morning. I imagine there will be arrests by afternoon. The fight visibly drained out of him. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I learned from watching you, Father. The difference is, I'm offering you a way out. A chance to salvage your reputation and stay out of prison. It's more than you were offering me. James suddenly broke down, sobs racking his body. I'm sorry, he repeated over and over. I couldn't stop. I tried, but I couldn't stop. My mother moved to comfort him, her own tears flowing freely now. My father and I remained locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, he gave a single, terse nod. I'll contact the board in the morning and make arrangements for James's treatment. I'll expect written confirmation by noon tomorrow. As they prepared to leave, my father paused at the door. You're more like me than I ever realized, he said, a statement that might have once felt like praise but now carried a different weight. No, I replied, I'm better, because I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. After they left, I poured myself a generous glass of whiskey and returned to the terrace. The night air felt cleansing, washing away decades of seeking approval that was never going to come. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. How did it go? I typed back. They're complying. Details tomorrow. Then I stood in the silence, looking out at the city that had given me everything my family had not. Opportunity, recognition, and now, finally, power. 3 weeks later, invitations went out for what the business press was calling the real estate event of the season. I was hosting a gala at my penthouse to announce a new foundation focused on financial literacy and support for young women entering the business world. The guest list included everyone who had witnessed my humiliation at the birthday party, along with key board members from Williams Investments and influential figures in Manhattan's business community. The invitation specified that Thomas, Eleanor, and James Williams would be attending as special guests. The terms of our agreement had been meticulously followed. My father had resigned as CEO, citing health concerns and a desire to support family priorities. The board had appointed Howard Jennings as interim leader, while a restructuring plan was implemented. James had entered a respected treatment facility specializing in gambling addiction. My father had sold the Aspen property and several valuable artworks to address the Carducci debt situation. They had even downsized from the Connecticut mansion to a still luxurious but more modest home. Rachel raised concerns about the gala. "Are you sure this is necessary? You've already won. Why risk reopening wounds?" "Because narratives matter," I explained. "Right now, the story is that Thomas Williams stepped down due to health issues and James is taking time for personal reasons. I need to control what happens next." "And what is that?" "Redemption, but on my terms." The night of the gala arrived with perfect early autumn weather. My penthouse had been transformed with elegant floral arrangements and subtle lighting that showcased both the space and the Manhattan skyline beyond my terrace. As guests arrived, I greeted each one personally, accepting their compliments on the decor and my burgundy gown with practiced grace. Many offered subtle or direct references to the incident, expressions of support or curiosity about the family dynamics. I deflected with poised remarks about looking forward, not backward. When my parents arrived, my mother embraced me with genuine warmth. The past weeks had changed her in subtle ways. She stood straighter, spoke more directly, as if freed from some invisible constraint. "The place looks beautiful, Alyssa," she said, and for once, there was no subtext, no comparison to how she would have done things. My father approached with the careful dignity of a man navigating unfamiliar terrain. He was thinner, his suit slightly loose around the shoulders. The public story of health concerns had developed a grain of truth, stress manifesting physically. "Alyssa," he said, extending his hand formally. When I took it, he surprised me by covering our clasped hands with his free one. "Thank you for including us tonight." James arrived separately, directly from his treatment facility, where he had been granted a special evening pass. 30 days sober had changed him dramatically. His eyes were clear, his handshake firm without the nervous energy that had always characterized him. "I'm working the steps," he said quietly. "Making amends is part of that. We'll talk later?" I nodded, unexpectedly moved by the glimpse of the brother I might have had under different circumstances. As the evening progressed, I circulated among guests, building anticipation for the announcement to come. At precisely 9 o'clock, I clinked a glass for attention and moved to the small podium that had been set up near the terrace doors. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, surveying the room full of Manhattan's elite. "Many of you were present at my birthday celebration last month, which ended in a way none of us expected." A ripple of uncomfortable recognition moved through the crowd. "Family businesses come with unique challenges," I continued. The line between professional and personal becomes blurred. Expectations and traditions can cloud judgment. My father stood absolutely still, uncertainty in his eyes as he waited to see where this was going. "The Williams family has faced some difficult truths recently. About business, about addiction." I looked directly at James, who nodded slightly, accepting the public acknowledgement of his struggle, "and about the future of both our family and our company." I paused, letting the tension build. "Tonight, I'm announcing the creation of the Williams Future Foundation with an initial endowment of $2 million. This foundation will focus on two primary missions: supporting young women entering male-dominated business fields and providing resources for families struggling with addiction." Approving murmurs spread through the room. I gestured for my family to join me. They moved forward, surprise evident in their expressions. My father, Thomas Williams, has agreed to serve on the board, lending his considerable experience in investment strategy. He blinked rapidly, clearly not expecting this. My brother James, whose personal journey with addiction has informed the Foundation's approach, will help develop outreach programs once he completes his own recovery program. James's eyes filled with tears, but he stood straighter. And my mother, Eleanor Williams, will serve as the Foundation's first chairperson, bringing her organizational skills and compassion to this new chapter of the Williams legacy. My mother's hand flew to her heart, genuine shock on her face. Additionally, I continued, I'm pleased to announce that Williams Investments is entering a strategic partnership with Morgan Real Estate, my firm, to develop affordable housing projects in Brooklyn and Queens. These projects will provide both stable investment returns and address critical housing needs in our city. The business implications weren't lost on anyone in the room. I had effectively positioned myself as the new power center of the Williams business interests, while creating a narrative of family reconciliation and evolution. Sometimes, painful moments lead to necessary change, I said, looking directly at my father. What matters is not the crisis, but how we respond to it. The Williams family is choosing to respond with accountability, growth, and a renewed commitment to ethical business practices. I raised my glass. To new beginnings. The room erupted in applause. Photographers captured the moment. The four of us standing together, glasses raised, the perfect image of family unity rising from adversity. As guests mingled afterward, I overheard snippets of conversation. Masterful rebranding. She's positioned herself brilliantly. Thomas looks almost relieved to have the burden lifted. The son seems genuinely changed. Later, on the terrace, my father found me alone. That was not what I expected, he admitted. What did you expect? Public humiliation. Revenge. I looked out at the city lights. That would have been your approach, not mine. The foundation, the partnerships. You had all this planned? I believe in turning crises into opportunities. He was quiet for a moment. You're better at this than I ever was. Yes, I said simply. I am. I won't apologize for trying to protect the family business. I didn't expect you would. But the slap. He stopped, struggling. That was unforgivable. Yes, it was. Yet you've created this narrative where we all move forward together. I turned to face him fully. This isn't fiction, Father. This is strategy. The foundation benefits everyone, including me. The business partnerships strengthen both companies. Your public image remains intact. But make no mistake, the power structure has changed permanently. Understanding dawned in his eyes. The crown has passed. It wasn't passed, it was taken. Remember that. As he walked away, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only a calm certainty that I had finally broken free of the patterns that had defined our family for generations. 6 months passed, bringing changes I could never have anticipated. Winter gave way to spring, snow melting from Manhattan rooftops, new green appearing in Central Park below my penthouse windows. As the city renewed itself, so did the fragments of my life that had been shattered that night at the Wellington. The Williams Future Foundation had quickly gained recognition for its innovative approach to supporting women in business. Under my mother's leadership, it had already provided scholarships to 15 young women pursuing finance degrees and established mentorship programs at 3 universities. More surprisingly, Eleanor Williams had blossomed in her new role. Free from my father's shadow, she revealed organizational talents and social intelligence that had always been present but suppressed. We had begun having weekly lunches, carefully rebuilding our relationship one conversation at a time. I should have protected you more, she said during one such lunch. I always thought staying quiet was protecting the family, but I was really just enabling behavior that hurt you. Why did you stay? I asked, a question I had wondered my entire life. She considered carefully before answering. Security, fear, love, of a complicated kind, but mostly habit. It's terrifying how powerful habit can be. And now? A small smile transformed her face. Now I'm developing new habits, better ones. Williams Investments was slowly stabilizing under Howard Jennings' leadership. The partnership with Morgan Real Estate had brought fresh capital and projects that were generating positive press and moderate but sustainable returns. My father had settled into a consulting role that utilized his experience while limiting his authority. Our relationship remained formal but functional. He had not apologized for the years of favoritism or emotional neglect, and I had stopped expecting him to. Some wounds were too old, too deep for simple closure. James had surprised everyone, including himself. After 90 days in residential treatment, he had transitioned to outpatient therapy while working part-time at the foundation. His gambling addiction was a daily battle, but one he was fighting with unexpected determination. "One day at a time," he told me, during a rare dinner together. "That's all any of us can do." "When did you get so philosophical?" I teased. "Somewhere between step 4 and step 9. He hesitated. "Alyssa, I need to make formal amends. For everything." "You don't have to." "I do. I really do." His eyes held a clarity I had never seen before. "I was jealous of you for so long. Your strength, your independence, your success. It was easier to resent you than to face my own failures. We were both playing roles assigned to us before we were old enough to choose. Maybe. But I still made my choices." He reached across the table, tentatively offering his hand. "I'm sorry for every time I took advantage of being the favorite. For every time I watched you struggle alone and did nothing." I took his hand, feeling something heal that I hadn't realized was still broken. "Thank you." Professionally, the incident at the Wellington had paradoxically strengthened my position. The business world respects power, and I had demonstrated it decisively. New clients sought me out. Competitors treated me with increased deference. My team at Morgan looked at me with a mixture of awe and wariness that was not entirely comfortable but undeniably useful. On a personal level, the healing was more complicated. I began working with Dr. Laura Jensen, a therapist specializing in family trauma. Our weekly sessions helped me untangle the complex web of emotions that had shaped my life. "You survived by becoming exceptionally competent," she observed during one session. "But survival mechanisms aren't always healthy long-term strategies. What's the alternative? Learning to value yourself beyond your achievements, forming connections based on mutual care rather than strategic advantage." "That sounds terrifying," I admitted. "Growth usually is." Slowly, I began building a life that wasn't entirely defined by work and family dynamics. I joined a book club, took cooking classes, accepted dinner invitations from colleagues that extended beyond networking, small steps toward what Dr. Jensen called living rather than achieving. The most unexpected change came from Catherine Rodriguez, a brilliant young architect I had met through the foundation. She approached design with a passion that reminded me of my younger self, before success had become my primary goal. Our professional collaboration evolved into friendship, then something more, surprising us both. "You're different when you talk about buildings," she told me one evening as we stood on my terrace. "Your whole face changes. It's like you remember why you fell in love with real estate in the first place." She was right. Somewhere along the way, I had lost the joy of creation in the pursuit of validation. Working with Catherine rekindled that spark, reminding me that success without passion was a hollow achievement. Exactly 6 months after the slap that changed everything, I hosted a small dinner party at my penthouse. Not a business function, not a strategic gathering, but a simple evening with the handful of people who had become important to my personal life rather than my professional one. After everyone had gone, I stood on the terrace alone, looking at the city that had always represented freedom and possibility to me. The penthouse remained mine, no longer a battleground or a symbol, just a home I had earned and chosen. The Williams name still opened doors, but increasingly, it was my own reputation that preceded me. The scars remained, of course. Family wounds never fully disappear. But they had transformed from active injuries into the kind of healed tissue that reminds without incapacitating. A map of where I had been, not a limitation on where I could go. The most valuable lesson from everything that had happened wasn't about business strategy or family dynamics, though I had certainly learned plenty about both. It was simpler and more profound. The understanding that true strength isn't found in power over others, but in the courage to define yourself on your own terms. Sometimes it takes a slap to wake you up to your own worth, to show you clearly who values you and who sees you only as a resource to be used. The painful clarity of that moment had ultimately given me something precious, the freedom to build a life based on my own values rather than seeking approval that would never come. Standing there under the stars, I finally felt at peace with all of it. The hurt child, the determined young woman, the calculating strategist, and whoever I was still becoming. All parts of a whole person who was, at last, truly and completely free. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure to protect what was rightfully yours? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Remember to like this video if you found it meaningful, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and transformation. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember that sometimes the most painful moments in our lives become the foundation for our greatest strength.